Do you like gelato?
You do?
Me too. So does my daughter, Abigail. 3.5 years old, chestnut hair, bright eyes, and a lovely smile. And occasionally starter. This July, Abigail and I took a trip to Florence, Italy. One of the things we enjoyed the most was having gelato. I pushed Abigail in a little stroller. The sky was blue and clear. The sun was high and hot. And there were gelato shops everywhere. They put on a magic display of flavors and colors. Deep green for mint, bright pink for strawberry, and light brown for hazelnut. For €2, you can get 2 big scoops of gelato stir-fried on a cone. Holding the cone and having a bite, you find it delicious and cooling. Each time, Abigail will get a chocolate gelato beard on her face. We agreed that we will have gelato once a day. Back home, gelato and candy are special treats for both of us. We only had them once in a while, so once a day was already a lot. But still, Abigail would keep asking the same question. Mommy, can I have gelato? I would say, we already had it. Remember, once a day. Okay, she replied. You see, this is actually a pretty good strategy. It doesn't hurt to ask, right? Most likely, Mommy will say no, but what if she would say yes? Wouldn't that be a bonus? That was exactly what she did when we were having lunch in a small and quiet restaurant. The restaurant is about less than 10 tables, half full. John, a local young man, tall and welcoming and also very polite, was the only waiter in the restaurant. The menu was handwritten in Italian. This is the kind of place that would change dishes daily based on the availability of the freshest seasonal ingredients. John sat down on our table and went through the menu, explained every dish. And Abigail sat right across the table, was on her best behavior, quite like a little lady. After we finished the ordering, I walked Abigail into the washroom to wash hands. Right there, she popped the question. Mommy, I want some gelato. No, not now. And then she replied, but I want it. I want it. She started to scream. I felt the restaurant suddenly become quiet. I imagine people, everybody, stopping their conversations, looking at each other and saying, what's going on with that little girl? Why is she screaming like that? I feel the warm blood rushed to my face. What would you do if you were in front of a screaming kid demanding for ice cream? Wouldn't it be easy just to say yes, so to get her to stop? Or would you start a logic lecture about why it is important not to scream in the public? Do you think she will listen? I sort of understood why she was screaming. She thought screaming in public was a way to get what she wanted, because she already succeeded in doing that before. Early that morning, while we were still in the lobby of the hotel we stayed, Abigail was pushing the stroller around the room. At one point, she got frustrated and started crying really, really loud because she couldn't get the stroller to turn around a piece of furniture according to what she wanted. At that moment, Joanna, the owner of the hotel, dressed nicely as always in her long white gown, happened to be there. She asked, "Can I give her a lollipop?" I nodded, knowing that the lollipop would calm her down, and that's what I wanted. And it did. As Abigail was eating the lollipop, I said to her, "You know, it wasn't quite nice to scream like that, but I got my lollipop," she replied. So she already made a connection between crying and getting a lollipop. No matter how much I want to deny it, it was exactly what had happened. She cried, and then she got a lollipop. Now she's doing it on purpose and expecting that she will get a gelato as a reward. I would love to lecture her, don't ever cry and scream in public, not anywhere else. But I didn't think she would have listened to me if I were to have said that. I need to try something different, something she could understand. I took a deep breath. I picked her up so she couldn't bump into anything that could hurt her. And I looked right into her eyes. "Abigail, Mommy loves you, but no gelato." Slowly, her howling turned into sobbing, and finally, it stopped. So I carried her out of the room, almost bumped into John, who was standing right there. "Is everything all right? Do you need any help?" he asked. "Everything's just fine. Thank you for asking," I responded in a brave smile. It worked. Abigail didn't try the trick anymore for the rest of the trip. Yes, she will still ask the same question, but there's no more howling, crying, or screaming. She got my message. If you want to be understood, you first need to understand. Mr. Toastmaster.
Story and something that anybody who's actually even sees kids in restaurants can relate to. And you did provide a very good solution on how to handle that. And again, the story was quite interesting. The one comment I would have is I caught a couple instances where your grammar could have been better. You said after finishing the order, after I finished ordering, or something like that would have been a little more grammatically correct. But overall, a real interesting speech.
Christina, thank you for your speech. I really love this vignette of Gelato and Florence and you and your little daughter, and using it to illustrate a moral perhaps, or a lesson. You had wonderful descriptions. Your daughter, I can picture her, and the colors of the gelato, and I want to go. You used humor too. Abigail screaming in the restaurant for gelato. Parents can relate, and now we can laugh. I can laugh because that was many years ago that we had those experiences. Maybe you didn't intend it as humorous, but it was very funny. I think that one of the growth opportunities I would recommend is eye contact. Now, I did notice you were making eye contact, but I started watching and I felt you focused a lot on Cynthia and Julia up at the front, and less, although sometimes back here, but a lot more at the front.
Sure.
And that would be my recommendation to work on that a little bit.
Christina, thank you so much for the story. And I really enjoy how you describe things. Again, you have very descriptive language and describe it to the detail of the detail that we really see it on stage. It's a great imagery. And your language is very precise, I will have to say. So precise that almost I want to criticize, might be able to be a little bit even more conversational. It's more like a written language than a speech to me.
Right.
I love your humor. And then I think to enhance that is really think about storytelling is put yourself back to that environment. Like when you say you see something, pretend you really actually see it. What's your reaction looks like? Right. So I feel like in terms of gesture, your facial expressions, and the vocal variety can all enhance and make it more believable. Like your daughter is screaming. She's screaming. Yeah, she's screaming. Oh, yeah, you're so calm. I don't think I can believe that. And one last point, the conclusion felt a little bit abrupt for me. So all of a sudden, you just jumped into the one-liner conclusion. So, it's so abrupt. I didn't even remember what was the conclusion. So maybe there's some transition there will help.
A nice smile and good manner. That's always important. Some of your movement looked a little unbalanced. I thought maybe you were getting ready to fall or something. So be careful on that with that little twirl you made. Now, when your daughter was looking up to you, I believe you should have looked down to her when you were talking to her.
Christina, thank you for showing up today to give a fantastic speech. I love you talking about food. That's my favorite topic, so I'm already interested. I thought you gave a good description of your daughter. You described her. You were talking about pushing a stroller, and you used a good gesture for that. You talked about the sky being blue, the sun being hot. I love all those descriptions. The magical display of colors of the gelato. 2 big scoops. You used a good gesture holding the cone. And when you were talking about how the ice cream tasted, there was some kind of a facial expression that really indicated you were savoring, oh, it tasted so good, or something like that. You did that. You were really funny. I loved to hear your daughter talking. Mommy, I want some gelato. I want it. Something like that. I like that, hearing from her. I liked it when you went into her body and became her. I would have liked to see more of that. A few times you reached out to the audience. You'd say, like, what would you do if you had a screaming child? That was good. And you gave a good description of Joanna wearing a white gown or something. That was great. In terms of growth opportunities, I agree with Julia. I would have liked to see Abigail screaming, crying, howling, sobbing. And then you could say to the audience, how would you feel if you had to deal with this kid? And then we could really oh, God, it reminds me when my daughter was a little brat, and that would have been good. So more dialogue from Abigail and more drama from Abigail, like a spoiled kid kind of. So really change your personality. One time you pointed, and Tim always tells me no pointing. So it's like
already been said. Very wonderful job of painting descriptions. And I was thinking as you were talking, your smooth style of storytelling as to Connie's speech, more entertaining, but still a nice balance. So I thought about that as you was talking, because it was a nice pace rate. I enjoyed that. There was one time you had this dynamic pause. And it was when you were talking with Abigail and this connection to what she did to you. Like the way you looked, it's almost like you were there all over again. It was priceless. And I just made a note of that. Some things, some growth opportunities, and Connie had mentioned this and others, the howling and the sobbing, I really would have exaggerated that. That really would have been really apparent. And I have to agree with Julia, you lost something in the ending. You could have wrapped it up with a really nice story. And that would have been a lot more effective than seeking to understand the being of the students. Sort of kind of pulled it down after you did such a nice job of pacing it and painting this picture and this whole thing, this whole relational thing between you and Abigail. So those are my suggestions. Work on some more book variety with some body language and a stronger ending. But
ah, yes, child sitting in Italy. What a delight. Christina, thanks for that story. Very interesting travel experience. A lot of things have been mentioned already. One thing I will touch on is questions. Questioning the audience is great. When you question the audience, also make sure you give them enough time to answer in their mind. So if you say, have you ever been to Florence? So have I. A little too fast. Ever been to Florence? So have I. So think about getting a little bit more of a pause there. That really worked. That worked well. Also had, we carry a lot of details. A lot of details. And our statistician here, Julia, loved the details. I think other people did too. The details are great. Put yourself in the picture and see what's going on. Now I'm going to take a little bit of difference to people here. I think he didn't have a story. I think he had a narrative. There are places we almost had a story. We'll talk a little bit about what makes a story, what makes a narrative in just a little bit. First, one thing I know she did, and I used to do this all the time, is the pivot. Hi, how are you doing, Bob? Gee, Tom, nice to meet you. Hey, Frank, how's it going? Oh, so nice. It just looks weird. It just looks weird. But what I discovered from world champion speaker Craig Valentine, you can talk to people and have the same effect. You say, so Bob said, hey, how are you doing? And Frank said, I'm doing great. You can change to look at different people, a little bit of pause to one side, a little bit, but you don't have to do that dramatic thing that just looks weird after a while. And you're talking to the wall, basically, so you lose eye contact with the audience. So that's not good. Which brings me to eye contact. Maybe that was your goal. You don't have to look at anybody if they're looking this way. So that's the nice thing. Eye contact, one person, one thought. And I know it's different, and it's different cultures too. I respect that. Amy Sagami, the person at our club, really, really good professional speaker, but she has to really kind of step out of her comfort zone. She's Chinese. And so it's a different sort of thing. You don't look at people like that. In America, you look right at people in the eye. In some places, you don't do that. But here, you really want to look at people and engage. And then finally, the thing that's most important about it is a story. And when a story has this conflict, everything in the story goes in conflict. The problem was you had a narrative because it kept going and going and going. And after a while, we're Toastmasters, we're going to stay awake. But some places, they're not as polite. So you want to make sure you keep people awake and keep them awake what's going on. And that's conflict. Bring the kid in, right from the very beginning. I remember I went to Florence and I brought my child along. The first just, I want gelato! Something. Get people's attention very set the conflict right at the very beginning. A dialogue, the things seen, known, and heard. So a little bit of picture of what the daughter looks like, a little background of what the conflict was, and then her, the dialogue going back and forth. And different things, different effect, but it gets people involved. Even if they laugh, it pulls them in. Laughter pulls everybody together. One thing I definitely learned from your speech, next time I go to Florence, no kids.